Welcome to Philosophical Entertainment, a podcast where if you're not philosophically entertained, our entertainment is only philosophical. I am Nirakara, and I'll be your host for today's episode. And if you've made it this far through the deep waters of soul contracts, astrological architecture, shadow work, and sacred leadership, I just want to pause and say thank you. Thank you for staying curious. Thank you for feeling into the subtle, for letting your soul take the wheel, even when the road has been mysterious. This is the final chapter in our trilogy with Jeanne Comeau. And as I was editing this last conversation, something washed over me. You know how sometimes when the mind gets quiet, a whisper sneaks through the back door? That's what happened to me. I was trimming filler words, cleaning up the audio, letting her words settle into me, and in that silence, a single word arose: moksha, liberation, the end of the wheel, the soul's final exhale. And I began to understand something I hadn't seen clearly before. We live our lives like skipping stones. Each bounce on the surface of the water feels like a lifetime. Tap, 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 or skip, 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 right? Another moment of contact, another incarnation. From the perspective inside the water, it looks like the stone appears again and again and again. Different names, different faces, but the truth is, it's one motion, one arc, one journey of a soul traveling through time, powered by unresolved energy. And what keeps us skipping? Emotional charge, attachments, longing, proving, fixing, performing, repeating. All the things the ego clings to. Soul contracts aren't always contracts of love. Sometimes they're contracts of unfinished business, a fight that never ended, a grief that never got to cry all the way out, a promise made in trauma that lingers in your bones. And so we skip again. We appear in new lifetimes with familiar souls, playing out the same patterns in different costumes, like actors stuck in rehearsal, trying to finally get the scene right. But what happens when we stop trying? What happens when we stop doing altogether? That's moksha. The stillness beyond the skip. The stone no longer bounces, it simply sinks. Not in defeat, but in peace. Not because the energy ran out, but because the pattern was dissolved. When there's no more emotional charge to ignite another loop, the cycle ends. And in that moment, you don't need to be right. You don't need to be understood. You don't even need to win. You're free. Free from the ego's endless quest to hold it all together. In control. Free from soul contracts that keep pulling you into the same orbit. Free from the gravitational field of karma. Moksha is not something you achieve. It's what remains when there's nothing left to grip. It's the final unraveling, the quiet disillusion, the soul's return to still water. And that is what this last conversation with Jeanne whispers toward. Her work in evolutionary astrology isn't about personality, it's about energy. It's about frequency, patterns, choices, and liberation. And what she reminds us of so gently, so clearly, is this: you are not the chart. You are not the trauma. You are not the story you've been rehearsing across lifetimes. You are the one who is waking up from it. You are the witness who is stepping out of the play. And your freedom begins the moment you stop identifying with the skipping and allow yourself to sink, not into darkness, but into presence, into wholeness, into moksha. So, today, as we open the final part of this sacred trilogy, I invite you to listen differently. Not with the intellect, not even with the heart, but with the part of you that's timeless. The part of you that remembers the skipping and also knows it's time to rest. Inhale, exhale, and let's step together into the stillness that has been waiting for you all along. This is moksha. And this is the final conversation with Jeanne Comeau. Let's dive in. That is interesting that you mentioned a high road and a low road as well, because I'm realizing you're saying the same thing of my experience. So I have this experience, right? And in it, I'm asking, what is source? What am I? What am I that's doing all of it? Because karma just means doing, and it's me that's doing it. But what is I? I realized the limitation of language, like immediately connecting to this internet. And it was in that I realized, God, so much of what you've said is like made me realize things, and I'm putting some stuff together too. Yeah, that one of the things I realized was our language is too short. It's too choppy. And the way in which we actually emote, because behind everything we speak is an emotion, the real way we emote is in longer sequences of energy. And I was grieving the loss of something, and I was wailing in a cry in a moment. And I realized that when you cry, or as I'm hearing others cry, there's a note that people cry on. And I thought, and when people cry, they don't say cry. It's not a one syllable and we're done. But when we say cry, we say cry, and it's just one syllable, and then we should be done with it. But in reality, when we cry, it's a wail, and it can last a long time.
Yes, it really can.
So in my experience, I realized that our true voice is a song, that life was supposed to be a musical. In the way we truly emote is we hold happiness for a moment. And so when we sing in notes of happiness, or if we're singing a song in tones of grief, we're supposed to carry that. We're supposed to hold that. And in that space, when we're actually speaking, which is singing, we're doing more of what the whales do. And in my experiences, I'm encountering, it's interesting, right? To think that you're part of a system, because we're so trained to be individual. And as I'm realizing how I'm connected to everything, like in the grocery store, I was every bug, I was everything. And as I'm experiencing that, I'm realizing that we're fish pretending we're not in water. We're humans pretending we're not in an atmosphere. But everything that touches the great breath.
We're humans pretending we're individual.
And it's so silly. Or we say, I came into this world instead of I came out of it. We fail to recognize that things in this place beget themselves. And when we plant a seed, it begets after its own kind. And when I had my experience, there was this questioning, what am I? And the only language I could bring it close to is that I am is as a body of water, and that over time, it evaporates a part of itself. And those vapors go out from it, but eventually will fall back into it in the way water will find itself again. No matter what form it takes, it falls back into itself. And each of us is as one of those drops of water.
Yes.
And we fall through atmosphere or experience back into source. And it's beyond orgasmic when you connect back with source. And the experience in contrast in that very specific sphincter muscle, I don't know, action of zipping and unzipping a file, going from something compressed to something usable. It's a fascinating sort of contrast, but it's in the same way you have a light bulb moment when you realize something and a combination of patterns comes to you and you realize, oh, 2 plus 3 is 5, because it's a total combination of units. And when the light bulb goes off, you go from the state of not knowing to the state of knowing. And we call it an aha moment. And there is an aha moment that you have when you go from observed to observer, when you go from the thing being and doing to realizing you're the one doing it. And as I saw the vapors falling back into itself, I realized what you're saying. It's the same thing, that these drops of water aren't always individual. Sometimes they combine into soul families. And so sometimes we join at the same places. Sometimes
we do.
These patterns continue to happen until we break out of them. Sometimes we get caught in atmospheres. You did mention like us going to drugs. And I want to say I was in law enforcement. I was a 911 operator for a long time. And then I became a police officer. But I had a different sort of life coming into all of it, where when you're dealing with an addict, you're dealing with somebody who's addicted to method.
To method, you said.
Right. Because it's a means of getting there. But in the way that they can't see that it's going to produce diminishing returns, some of our leaders can't see that leading with fear is going to produce diminishing returns.
Correct.
And is equally as toxic as somebody showing up to work high as a kite.
Absolutely.
Or on method. Because if the method is fear, or if the method is a substance that's not good for you, then you're contaminating the system that you're a part of. Some of us don't realize that we could become acid rain. We could become toxic ourselves.
There are many forms of escapism, and you're absolutely right. Leading from fear is an escapism, because anything that takes you outside of who you really are is an escapism.
Right.
You want to live the illusion because you can't, you're not ready to be who you are.
Right. There's a process of getting back in touch with that part of yourself that for whatever reason you denied.
What's also interesting, Benny, is everybody does the best they can.
Right.
Even those that are leading from fear. Somehow they think they're doing the best they can for something or someone, and usually it's themselves first, or they convince themselves that it's their family they're doing it for. But somehow they're all doing the best they can, just not equipped to do anything different yet.
That's the interesting thing, is that most people who get addicted to method, they found the method out of desperation. And so whether it was leading with fear, they became desperate at some point and they were grasping for control. So they used a method of fear and it worked.
Take a look at the kid that was bullied on the schoolyard and grew up to be a bully.
Exactly.
His method is, or her method is bullying.
Right. You know, that's interesting. And that is a product of the ego. In the same way, the saying goes that if you're the hero long enough, you become the villain. It's because that is the hero's journey. Like if you throw the ball over there, it's going to land over there. If you let the ego respond to trauma, then you're going to end up over there. Time doesn't heal all wounds.
No.
Otherwise, the oldest of us would be the most healed.
It absolutely does not. The story where one of the things I would think that people fear is becoming an angry older person.
When I had my experience, right, we have these drops of water coming back, but they have to obey the atmosphere, which is the cosmos, and everything from solar winds and radiation to, a star imploding, millions of light years away. All of it is the system that we're passing through. And so this is wild if you just keep zooming out and out and out. It becomes more abstract.
People say, how does it work? How could it work? How does it work? I've gone looking for that answer. You're going to read Know Your Stars, my thesis, that might lend some.
Yeah.
It'll lend a lot of information for you. It's energy. How else to say?
that we're just witnessing energy at a certain zoom level.
The fact that we are 0.001% matter. We are electric energy beings. To think that energy doesn't influence us doesn't make sense to me,
Right.
because we're energetic beings.
Right.
To think that the planets, as they go around the sun and move in and out and interact with the energies that we were infused with when we entered life, isn't a far stretch for me at all. But the skeptics of astrology, those individuals, I was just listening to a very well-known archetypal astrologer, Lawrence Hillman, and he was talking about the skeptics, and he's met with many of them. And when he's done meeting with them, they walk away in disbelief. Because he can explain to them what their energies are, what patterns have existed in their life. Not that the house was yellow or white,
Right.
how things have played out in life. Everything is emotion, so we can tie into that. We can understand that. And so what is emotion? What trips our emotion? We hurt. We want love, and we feel pain. We'll do anything to make the pain go away.
Right. We'll even do
Keep going.
cocaine.
I like cupcakes. No,
That's another one too.
that works
Yeah.
for me.
The attachments are endless.
They are, but it really is just energy.
But that's what I discovered too in my experience. And that's where I think we do a disservice just speaking language, because it doesn't even correlate to how we emote.
And I'll tell you, Vinny, coming on to today's podcast with you, I'm always in a conversation thinking, how do I find that right word to say that thing? And like you said, it is a song, it is music, how we communicate. But then people hear words differently.
True.
Different words mean different things to them.
That is interesting, because the only way in which we can communicate is by utilizing common party terms. They have to know the same thing. So if I say shark and they've never seen a shark, trying to describe a shark to somebody does it a disservice, because it will never put in their minds what a shark is until they've seen and they've experienced it. And so there is this sort of experiential, relational connections that we can have. And it is difficult when you have sort of lost your virginity to an idea that somebody else hasn't. And for you to try to explain to the rest of the nerds in the clubhouse, like, hey guys, it's more like this. It's really difficult because, again, there's going to be a gap. And I find that, like, working in technology, for instance, is what I'm doing now, that the more I can take a complex idea and make it usable information, the more people find me a resource. And it's when we're having these sort of cosmic conversations or contemplating the cosmos, and then try to bring that into sort of a day-to-day usable tool.
It's hard.
It is difficult, because it's hard when we're when we might find ourselves in a society where this sort of alpha male stoicism has permeated to like toxic levels. It's hard. There are some smells you can't get nose blind to. There are certain behaviors that make people present on scenes smelling like a frown. And it's hard to share with people that we need to be vulnerable and we need to be honest and authentic. It's really difficult to find ways to get people to let go.
It is. That reminds me of when I was starting my business. My real goal is to influence mainstream. I don't mean mainstream in a bad way, but to drop a seed that sends some individual tiptoeing towards knowing themselves and connecting with source inside. And so I have conversations with people and they know what I do. And some people say, how does that even work? And I can tell by their tone that they just want to rip me apart. So I don't
Right.
even entertain the conversation. And then other people might express some interest. And then I have to pick the words wisely and not overdo it and get on a whole triage where I scare them away type thing, but just plant the seeds. And that's all that we can do. The truth of the matter is, what, the 6 billion people on the planet? There's a lot of people. And you and I are a small percentage in terms of you and I being individuals that are seeking higher consciousness and have tapped into that as our reality. We believe that others should do that as well, but who are we? We believe that, but not until they're ready will they go there. And so it's podcasts like this and things like I'm doing that is going to open up more eyes to it. But I can tell you that we're in an age, and we are coming into a new age. We are in a new age where more and more people will be seeking to understand these principles and these philosophies that are ancient and before recorded history. These philosophies are very real. Higher consciousness, we are energy beings, we are eternal beings. Know yourself, find your role in the world, contribute your part, step up, take responsibility. There's no reason to be the victim. That victim consciousness is a method of controlling individuals, keeping humanity as a collective from moving to higher consciousness, which is where we all need to be. You and I doing our part, it's energy, right? Just people knowing what I do that are not bought into it. It's energy. I've infused something in their head because we walk the walk, right? So individuals would look at you or I or others that are doing the work and are walking the walk because we're really in that light. They look at us and they wonder, what does she have? What does he have? Why are these things not getting him down? How can I have some of that? Remember a friend years and years ago who said to me, and it just so surprised me. He said, I envy you your faith. Wow. I just felt his pain.
Right. Right.
Where does faith come from? It really is choice. It really is a choice. Science isn't going to prove it to you. It becomes, I believe, a personal choice to believe. Once you do, and it certainly has been my experience, it's so interesting. It was with me from a young age, just faith. Years ago, someone asked me, do you believe in God? I said, yes, I believe in God. How do you know? I just know. Did your mother tell you? No, she didn't tell me. Just know.
Interesting.
But I believe. My goal is to just help all of us, you and I, we're in a tribe, all of the others with us that are just seeking to take the pain away from humanity.
Right.
Just take the pain away. There's no need for it.
It's interesting. You're right. It's a byproduct of incorrect thinking. It's like what you're saying there when you're saying that you have a choice. In the same way, what you're saying is that you grant all authorities. If you grant an authority to a religion and ascribe to it, then you're allowing it to catch you in its net. But if you don't speak that language and you've never heard of it, then the net of that religion didn't catch me.
Right.
So if you make the choice, which is, it's really interesting. I was reading the Yoga Sutras, and I could probably pull it up, but there's a part in there where it's essentially talking about ways to center. And it's saying that there are different types, and there are different types that need to have it all to realize that they didn't need it all. Then there are types that are born with it. There are types that have to find it. Regardless, we all will find it because all drops return to the ocean.
Yes.
And we will all return back to source.
All return back.
I love that you say it's all energy. I'm trying to find a different way to skin that, but it's true. I can think of different ways to say it, but that's probably the closest.
There's even some scientific ways to see that, right? Carillion photography. It's a certain camera lens that when you photograph a plant, you actually see the energy coming
Oh,
from
interesting.
it. So Carillion photography, you see the energy of things. You go stand next to a tree and feel the energy of it. And then remember the trees in the Wizard of Oz that started smacking the scarecrow for picking the apples, right? Because they're sentient. They are alive. So that is energy. And then have you heard of the Japanese gentleman Emoto who photographed crystal water? Emoto was his name, and he wrote a book a very long time ago. He devised a method where he could photograph crystals. He would freeze water, and just as it turned to ice, he would take a picture of the crystals. So this is energy in motion. He took 2 glasses of water from the same source. On one glass, he wrote the word love. On one glass, he wrote hate. And he took photographs of those. And these photographs are in the book. This is all over the internet. And the crystal that had love was just beautifully formed. It's stunning. The crystal that had hate is deformed. Then what he did was he took water that was from a bad source, bad water, chemicals in it, what have you. And he did the same thing. Love brought that water back to life and pure light. So that's energy. So energy can be proven in many different ways that way. And that ties energy with the water, that ties energy right back to emotion, right back to it. This is why we pray over our food. Pray over our food. We thank our food. That energy right there infuses the food with the love that brings that energy into your body.
When you have different types of training, you can make your little beautiful mind room and connect different news articles with the red yarn or whatever. We can connect dots because of our experience, I think. I don't know if others can connect dots. For instance, I have a friend and he's an engineer, and he would refer to the ice changing states differently. This is what's so fun about improv is when you come out, you're just a different character that has some kind of weird obsession about something. And then the scene just gets funnier because nobody breaks character and they let everything clash until it gets funny. But the ways in which we perceive the same thing changes. So our past doesn't exist. So when you remember something, you call it into being and you reconstruct it in your mind. And you do so with a certain emotion.
Right.
And so is your emotion now the same as it was when you remembered that happening?
No.
If not, that means that you're not accurately
the memory
recalling
has
it.
changed. The memory has changed.
Correct.
Absolutely. You're not accurately recalling it.
So you are constantly rewriting yourself.
Yes, you are.
With your emotions that you're experiencing in the moment.
Yes. And what are emotions? Energy and motion.
Right. And if you could predict where the clouds of emotions are going to be,
which I can through evolutionary astrology, it's the weather.
Right. And if you have that, then you can forecast the best places for you to be in.
The high road.
During the high road. And that's interesting because I've been reading tarot cards and stuff, and they have for each card and whatever, there's like a positive or a negative aspect and that's the high road and the low road. Yes. That those 2 options are accessible to you under those conditions. Yes. And when you realize, I've got these 2 things coming up happening, I should probably lay low, or maybe this would be the best time for me to submit that proposal or something like that. But it puts you more in touch with environment. Yes. In that way.
In that situation, if you can't lay low because you just can't, and it's not something you can control, you're better positioned to control your reaction.
There it is. Right.
To the situation.
Yes.
It's all about, we create our life through our choices and reactions.
And the only reason we have a reaction is because we had formulated or anticipated an outcome.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. And when we form attachments to those outcomes, then we will fall victim to whatever emotion is in the atmosphere. Right.
So let's say you're wishing and wishing and praying and wanting something to happen, right? You got to let go of that attachment. Whatever that thing is, you've just got to know, be prepared, do your life to the best of your ability, and something's going to happen. Something will come in divine right order, in the right time.
Exactly.
So you surrender. Otherwise, the machinations will make you unhappy or bring disharmony, right? So we go back to holism. Anything that brings disharmony to physical health is going to cause physical health problems. Emotions really, the disease is the result of the emotions. The emotions
Oh,
create the
interesting.
disease.
Interesting.
You'll read about that in my papers. The emotion
Okay.
creates the disease, and because it causes disharmony. So if we go back to the fact that we are 99.99% energy, everything is just energy moving, right? So
Right.
emotion comes in and creates a stiffness, creates a
Yeah.
blockage. It stops the flow of the energy. Why do diseases show up in different parts of the body? It depends on what the emotion is. It's simply amazing. I'll
Yeah,
just say
that's
that.
fascinating because I was going through the yoga instructor program and I'm to a point where when I didn't feel like was ready to be like a reputable yoga instructor for somebody. It's like, oh, for a hot minute, I went and I hired a personal trainer to kind of help me out. And for different reasons. So growing up, we were homeless a lot. And my parents, again, the Mormonism thing, they kind of swung one way. They thought the world was ending in the 80s. And so they took all of their kids out of public school. So I never went to school. So I had to take adult literacy classes in my 20s. Like I had to come in the back door and learn how to like read and write. And
What a journey.
so it's been wild, right?
Yeah, that's wild.
So I hired a personal trainer to help me because I would work out too much. And I needed somebody to help me, tell me to stop. I'm struggling with recalibrating because I've been making up for lost time, like trying to get the bachelor's, doing the master's, whatever.
Yeah.
And so he was really helpful. But regardless, in this process, as I'm hearing you speak and I'm reflecting myself, if we have a way to read pattern that can reveal to us, is there a way that we need to skin it to appeal to an ego in the same way like the Mormon church has a whole marketing department? And
the ego always wants to know what's in it for me if I take that high road.
right. And that's I think a lot of religions do that. I think that's what how religions take spirituality and turn it into something that you could do that with. Because then the net is cast with the question, are you happy? You could be happier, right? If you believed in Jesus, what I saw for their future. And it's obvious what comes in their future to me. But I don't want to tell them because it's not them that's asking. I am isn't asking. An ego is asking that because an ego wants one up on something else, on someone else. They want an advantage. And that isn't the purpose of knowing how you die. The purpose is knowing you die and accepting it and falling into death with some grace and dignity instead of acting like you're going to outsmart something. And so it's fascinating that when you really think about it, all the answers are already here for us.
Yes, they are.
We just
All
need to
the
pay
answers
attention.
are right. They're right inside of everybody. There's no answers out there. I don't have the answers. I'll be the first one to tell my clients, I don't have the answers. You have the answers. I will help you mine for them. I will expose everything I can to you, but you have the answers. I don't have your answers.
That's interesting.
And that's hard for some clients because some clients want me to just, oh, you're my life coach. Tell me how to live life.
Right.
That's not my role. I can give you all the tools. I can help guide you, but you'll make your choices. And in terms of what is the history of your 10-year future, you hold the answers.
I was talking with Jerry. We were having a discussion and we fell into this sort of conversation where I was wondering, has there always been somebody awake at all times in society, in human history? Is the awakened individual an archetype? And
I believe it is.
I think, we were discussing that or does this archetype arise as like the Donald Trump types arise in societies and everything? Or, you know what I mean? Because a buyer and a seller arise mutually. And when a society rises, it has to fall.
I'll give you an example. Okay, so now we're going to go real big.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a yuga, Y-U-G-A?
I don't believe so.
So a yuga is a period of time. Think of it like an epoch. a big period of time, 25,000 years of time. It's called a yuga, and this comes to us from the ancient Indian writings, the yuga. And these ancient Indian writings name the yugas, and the yugas repeat. So just like you have an astrology chart, and there are certain planets that, so for example, Neptune entered Aries, it will be there for 14 years. So that's an epoch of time as well, much shorter than a yuga. So the yugas are real. They've been influencing the planet and the universe, but it's Earth-based, these yugas. But they've been influencing the planet since long before recorded history. And if any of us believe that Mesopotamia was the first ancient civilization on the planet, you're going to be opened up to some new findings. That's not the truth. And it goes way back, and it's all buried under the waters and under the earth and volcanoes and many, many things. So yugas are very long periods of time. We just left what's called the Kali Yuga. It just ended March 21st. So Bonnie, this is an amazing period of time for us all to be here because the Yuga just ended. And it was the Kali Yuga. Kali meaning the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages. We just exited the Dark Ages. What comes after the Dark Ages? It's a period of enlightenment, Renaissance. We're just coming into it now. Our role here in dropping seeds and helping humanity raise their consciousness is part of that period in time. We're here for a reason. And so when we talk about enlightened individuals coming at points in time, yes, Jesus came, enlightened individual. We got the yugas. We understand that. We just left the Kali. I forget the name of the new one, but we're tiptoeing into it right now. The other bigger thing that's happened is we're in or entering. This is it, the age of Aquarius. Okay. So some people remember the fifth dimension. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Great song. One of my favorites.
Don't tempt me. I will
sing.
Yeah.
But we have entered it. And some people say it was a couple of years ago it started. Actually, December 21st, 2021, I believe is the date. But the age of Aquarius that we're now coming into was preceded by the age of Pisces. Pisces is the fish. Now, Jesus was the fisherman. So there's a lot of tie between the Bible and astrology. Even though the church wants to say astrology is demons. It's got all sorts of scripture that'll lead you there. There are other philosophers and scholars that I've listened to that can tie the astrology right to the biblical stories. And so, but Jesus came in and he was the fisherman and he ushered in the age of Pisces. This was an age that humanity needed at that time to then bring us to this point to usher in the age of Aquarius. This
wasn't a new star born, and didn't three wise men follow a new
Absolutely.
star?
They did prove a major astrological event over Bethlehem at the time of his birth.
Interesting.
So there were big planets in conjunction in the skies, and the Magi were ancient astrologers. They were astrologers.
Right.
And they were waiting for this sign, and they followed it. Astrology goes way, way back to only the priests could know about the heavens. So are there times when these people come? Yes. It's all part of the evolution of the planet and humanity, is what I believe.
I really love the Dunning-Kruger effect concept.
To me.
So Dunning-Kruger, it was a study that was done, and it was talking about essentially intelligence, where it's somebody who doesn't know a topic at all will have the loudest opinions about it. Yeah. But if they enroll in those classes and they start taking the physics classes and they start taking all the classes and they start realizing, I don't know a lot about this stuff. And that's one phase. So the Dunning-Kruger effect is like a process. And so then as you're learning about it, you essentially come to the understanding that even though you might get advanced degrees in it, at the end of the cycle of knowledge of learning about that thing, you are referred to as an expert. And experts always speak carefully, and they use a lot of words like may, this may result, or this could happen, because their mind is opened up to a point where they don't speak so definitively about it.
Right.
And yet there's this effect in society where when somebody speaks loudly about something, that captures people, it captures their attention. Unfortunately, the loudest among us are the dumbest, are the ones that don't really understand it, because when they come out on the other side of it, a lot of people don't like to hear what experts have to say, because a
Mhm.
lot of times they'll just say, well, it depends,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
every body is different.
That's right.
And
The evidence suggests.
correct. And they use words like that, and they're careful in the way in which they present, because they have taken so many classes and understood that there are so many variables to consider.
Yes.
It's more and more difficult to answer a question in such binary terms. And so the more binary people seem to reason and respond, it seems like the less they know about things. And there's this sort of process in the life cycle of, like, I guess, of everything. You're talking about epochs, and you're talking about these different kalpas and cycles of
Yugas, yes.
yugas, of different time frames with which
Different
things will
time
happen.
periods
Yeah,
for
time
humanity.
periods.
There was a time when we all lived in caves. I mean, the great floods, we didn't die. I would love to see the day, and maybe I'll get into it as a movement. I'm hoping it's on my list, where astrology is taught in schools.
I mean, wouldn't
Like,
that be amazing?
wouldn't that be amazing? I believe that every individual after the age of 7 should start to understand what their stars are. They were
Right.
fully formed by the age of 7. I'll even go back in time. Parents, from the day the child is born, should know what that child's propensities will be, what their energies will be. And then the parents will far better understand the child. And the child won't be pegged into some particular slot that they weren't created to be in. Right? The stars tell you what you're created to be.
Hmm.
It's
Well,
pretty amazing like that.
when you
So
start following your true path,
you get healthy.
right? Yeah, it's
You
like
get,
cutting wood against the grain.
it is.
It,
Exactly. Well said.
yeah,
It
that's
is
what it
that.
feels like. It feels swimming against a current. And if somebody outside of it could say, "Oh, the current's going this way," just swim with the current. When you're
Mhm.
swimming with your flow, it feels fantastic.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Give you an example. Let's say a gentleman was born with his son in the third house of communication. And he is born into a family of surgeons. And so he's led to become a surgeon. And so he becomes a surgeon, but he's never really fulfilled his entire lifetime. And oh, his son is in Aries in the third house. Let's just go with that. All right. So Aries, lead, exert, force in the third house of communication. You almost, but it's your moon in Aries. He becomes a surgeon, but he's never really happy. He starts to meet that midlife crisis point that I talked about earlier. He's looking for something more. And lo and behold, a teaching position opens up. He's like, okay, that's an easy way to retire out. Let me start teaching people how to do surgery. All of a sudden, he's blooming. He's writing curriculum. He's talking to people. He's teaching. The third house is the teacher also. And he's just a happy camper now when he sails into the Renaissance years. But the first part of his life, he might have had high blood pressure. He might have had all these weirdo things that influence our health when our body is not in harmony. And our body is not in harmony because we're not doing the thing we came to do. The person we came to be, that happy spot, the spot of contentment, if you will. And you're happier now doing what you were doing.
right. I just need to get some sponsorship for it. But I love doing this podcast more than anything else. The thing that you mentioned about, if we're going with the flow, and I know we're talking about energy, but I think it's interesting to, I guess the net to cast would be like, are you happy? Really, I guess that's what religions do too, because it's one of the most basic questions to ask you if it's all been worth it. Because,
I think I'd ask it differently. Are you healthy?
oh yeah, I
Are
like
you
that.
healthy?
Yeah. That's like asking, are you hungry? There's
Yeah.
a more honesty that you have with
Right.
that, where you'll check with your stomach.
Right.
You know, go, all right,
Right.
am I hungry? No, I'm
You know,
okay. Or, yeah, I'm hungry.
out
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
if a person is content and happy with their life, their health will improve take a look at how many unhealthy people there are. To me, that equates to people that usually are unhappy. Why are they unhappy? They're not living the reason they came to live. It's amazingly simple, yet, isn't it? And yet we all get put into, oh, here it is. I came up with this. Unhappiness is born of a soul that is not evolving. Unhappiness brings disharmony, brings illness.
It's hard to recognize that things here beget themselves, right? Hurt people. And we don't sometimes recognize how hurtful we're being because we're so busy hurting. When I see people, unhealthy people, I see people who are hurting. There is another way to live. It can start at any time.
Yes.
But some of us, unfortunately, have been living this way so long that it seems hopeless to start changing now, right?
Yeah.
And even when I had my experience, I did not want to come back and help heal this body. And I didn't want to, I get it. Like when some people are unhealthy and do they give up? Some people do. They just resign themselves to it would be too much work.
My doctor and my medication. Yeah.
Yeah. And they don't realize that you can be in a state of joy all the time.
Yet, Fanny, there's such a force against everybody that teaches it's okay to be unhealthy and it's okay to need meds because every commercial on TV is about a different drug.
Yeah.
So there's a brainwashing. There's very definitely a brainwashing that goes on there. All the more reason why you and I need to keep doing what we're doing, dropping seeds, because there's a real brainwashing that goes on to people. And then they just, there's just the herd, it just goes along.
Because a good business model is something that's used up and needed again. These markets, they're not running those ads for free. They benefit from your pain. There is an encouragement to get people addicted to method because method is something temporary.
Right.
And the fix is, the hard part is that some people actually are requiring so much healing that they actually need to leave society for a while and go to a place where they can heal. Then they can find themselves again and then come back to society.
And that happens.
It's hard for us. We don't have facilities that can accommodate and be healing facilities for people to do that. Like the ultra rich celebrities, they go to retreats or something in these dry houses for celebrities, but
right.
Not everybody can afford that. I know I was with an ex and we were trying to make things work, and I paid for us. We went to Mexico and we did a week-long yoga, spiritual ayahuasca kind of week-long thing.
Oh, wow.
But when it wasn't ayahuasca, but it was like that. It was
Like
psilocybin mushrooms. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the interesting part about that is whenever you connect with source, it's always very individual. And I know in large measure, I was trying to wake her up because she was all ego, and it's just get out of yourself and just be a real person. And I was hoping that could wake her up. She's on a different spiritual journey than my own. We're meeting with the spiritual indigenous leader there in Mexico and stuff, and we're doing all the ceremonies. And when I take psilocybin mushrooms, I'm largely
I've never taken them, so I don't know what the experience is.
Because I know if you take ayahuasca, or if you take like a different gateway to source, it pulls you into its perspective. And
interesting. Okay.
Because it reached enlightenment its way. So when you contact it, it pulls you into its current and shows you how to reach source its way. So like if you do ayahuasca, it's a woman. It's a feminine energy, 100%. And all she wants to do is make the planet green. So after you do ayahuasca, you feel called to, because you start resonating with her perspective, you feel called to make the planet green. You want to get rid of all this oil crap and everything. You just want everything just back to nature. But psilocybin mushrooms is a different kind of experience. Connects you to source, does the whole thing, but it does it in a way through the mushrooms. And mushroom spores connect everything. So
yes, they do.
it is an entire layer of reality that surrounds this planet. When you connect with that, it takes you to source through its very fun little journey. And it's a fun way to connect.
Is it fun?
I felt the same when I took them as I do with you now.
Huh.
And I could see the colors if you let yourself fall into it.
Not like a bad acid trip that I heard about in the 60s.
No. So whenever you do any kind of psychedelics, it's all about set and setting.
Correct.
So if you and I were to do it together, if I wouldn't do any of it, I would be your anchor in this reality for you. And I would provide care for your body as you had an experience. And I would ensure that you and I would be in environments that will create realities for you. It does a thing where you can fall into something endlessly. So it helps you to stop time. And so you can ponder one concept and then fall into it forever. Wow. And it's beautiful because as you fall into it, it plays with you and you see that this for that and this for that. So it rocks you through the shifting changes in patterns of reality. And so it can help you to see things that you've trained yourself to unsee, but that's always been there. And so a bird will fly by and you will see the rainbow of energy behind the bird. You will see how it...
See, that's energy.
Yeah, so I try not to talk too much in the energy realm because I totally get it. When it moves through space, we don't see, like you could ask yourself, do fish see water? Like we don't see the air, but it is seeable. And as a bird cuts through it, if you had the eye trained to see it, you would see the ripples in the air that it left as it went by, and it looks like magic. And so the mushrooms help you to see everything as it really is. So you see energy everywhere. And you see how patterns make everything. So you see all the geometric shapes if you want to fall into it or whatever. But it's a delightful invitation to source. So doing this, and she doesn't wake up. She has her own experience that it has for her. Because each time you contact it, it has its own thoughts. Each mushroom's different, and it has its own experience for you. And it was interesting because I realized that there was a bit of tragedy in that for me, I didn't have a guru. Life was my guru. It was the arrangement of pattern in my life that trapped me in such a way that it destroyed my ego. And my ego was forced to dissolve itself. And in that process, I woke up. And so in the Yoga Sutras, I was one of those because there are many different types. And that's what I needed because I didn't have the luxury of a guru. Life had to pound it out of me. So then, in your way that you found source, I don't think you needed something as extreme. I don't think that your stars were such that your character would be as hard-headed as mine. You came to it in a different light, in a different way. But it's interesting how that even though we could be on this side of this particular journey, I can see how the path that I'm on terminates in a certain way. And I don't know if you feel this as well, but there's the path of the guru, which at the ending stages of the guru, they don't say anything because they've realized that there's really nothing to say, that you can wake up with the sound of the rain or in a kiss or in any moment you choose, and you choose it. Right. But the combination of events doesn't have to be such that you wake up at the moment of your death, which is what most everybody does. They hold on to their ego character until they die. And then as they die, they realize, well, damn.
I believe that I will get to a place where I won't need to read anymore. Won't need to study anymore. Won't really need to listen to anybody anymore. I've got it all up here and I'm connected to it. And in terms of what you were just saying, I think that's a point when does the guru stop being the guru? That was what you said. That just becomes a natural thing for me. Later in life, again, with evolutionary astrology, there are stages of life. And so we'll all, God willing, live them, all the great ones. The biggest, greatest one is in the mid-80s when we have our Uranus return and other big shifts happen as well. This is the classic end of life, but it's when you just come right back around to, I've evolved. It's like
Yeah.
a settling of the soul, and anything that comes after that is gravy. There's a woman on YouTube, I think she's 89. She's way up there, and she does her astrology. She gets out there and she's on March 2025. I'm still on planet Earth watching the planets go up. And she's got the white magnetic board, and her planets are little magnets that she moves around. She's a hoot. I've learned things from her.
I think
So
that's
I have
great.
a vision of doing that. I think that's going to be good fun. Although by then, I'll be a holograph that'll just drop in your dining room.
I was actually thinking about that, like in Bolstrom's paper about whether or not we live in a simulation. Is it Nick Bolstrom? Anyway, he comes up with 3 possible realities that we live in. And he was the one that proposed that we live in a simulation. It's essentially theorized that like an artificial intelligent being came online. And in its memory, it has the history of mankind. But because it will be artificial, it will outlive mankind. So after the civilizations die around it, it simulates what it thinks humans were like. And so it's essentially timeless, playing with.
So that's the game we're in.
Right. And then the question is, which is base reality? Then what you come up with is the Inception movie, a dream within a dream. So then could it be possible that the artificial intelligent being creates an environment that becomes self-aware that then creates artificial intelligence? So how many layers deep could we be in this thing?
People are starting to talk about. Yeah.
Interesting, right?
Very, very interesting.
So I was just reading his thesis paper that he wrote. And as I was reading through it, I realized, oh, this is interesting because this is solipsism reskinned. And it's the idea that it's the same thing I was saying, that where does the universe exist? Now, solipsism is now prove that I exist to you, and you can't. And so then it goes back to the brain in a vat, that this could all be a hallucination from something that isn't even contacting a sun or any reality. It's creating light. It's creating the contrast of all of these things. It's interesting to me that I couldn't wake up the woman I was with, and that I couldn't wake up through how many days of the life of this character, and that each one of us and I'll tie it back to this astrology stuff, but each one of us is like a lock that requires certain tumblers to be moved in a certain way to unlock us.
Mm-hmm.
And some of us could not need the combination of events that I needed to unlock the illusion for me.
Right.
I realized, and I had to grieve the loss, that I couldn't be the key or the catalyst that unlocked her awakening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that character in her life. And I realized that. I'm not going to wake her up.
Only she can do it.
Right. And it's hard when you want to heal somebody and they can't heal. And I clearly had an attachment, right, to the outcome of us being together forever or whatever. But there is some kind of recognition that we all have to have in this realization that we can't receive that aha moment or experience that aha moment unless we let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way, like a buyer and a seller arise mutually, like a student and a teacher, they arise mutually. So that the teacher can't be the teacher unless the student lets themselves fall into that studious mindset where they're asking themselves, what can I learn from this? And when you fall into that state, then you can have the aha moment. But it's sad when you close yourself off from your authenticity, because it's going to put you in environments where it's more and more difficult to unlock that experience.
Yes, it is.
Because what you're allowing to come out of you isn't proper. And so what then will echo back to you from that improper initial energy output, you're going to be suffering in scene work because what keeps reverberating back to you is stuff that isn't you, but it's you that's not being authentic to begin with. So it's a hard journey to learn to love yourself and to fill yourself with so much love.
Takes
And
a lot of courage.
yep, because then once that is so full, you can't help, you want to share it with other people and you want them to experience it too. But it is tragic when you're singing and there's no audience, or you're radiating it, you're trying to heal, but it's falling on deaf ears. But if we could get in tune with maybe our flow, we
Our
can stop
flow,
swimming against that
our
current that's
energy.
blocking us.
Yes.
Right.
To what Jerry was saying earlier, and more faith in the power of surrender.
Yeah. Trust what is.
The most empowering thing an individual can do is know who they are. What makes you tick? What makes you tick?
Because then you're not putting on them motivators. Instead, you're asking them what their drivers are.
Right. And what's so interesting is so many people look to their friends or their partners to understand who they are. And that's not going to get you there.
That's
It's
true.
not going to get you there because they're telling you who you are, which is not who you are, through the lens of how they see you and all their crap. We certainly don't want to do that. But people don't know.
Right.
People don't know. So my message to everybody is astrology is not pseudoscience. It's not a parlor game. It's not voodoo. It's a very real science. And in ancient times, it was a science. Astronomy and astrology were taught together in the schools of the ancient civilizations. And it's as things started coming up that astrology started going underground, and probably as a method of controlling people. And the religions took over. The Bible writes some interesting passages about astrology. You're calling in the dark forces if you talk to astrology. And yet some of the greatest minds in all time were astrologers. Galileo was an astrologer. They put him in jail for it. Pythagoras, the mathematician, was an astrologer. Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, is quoted as saying, any doctor that doesn't know astrology shouldn't be calling himself a doctor. You know, in fact, medical astrology is a very real field. And every part of the body is equated to a sign. And depending on, again, your wheel and where the planets are, they're influencing the particular parts of your body. Medical astrology is very real, and Hippocrates certainly practiced it, and many of the doctors back then did. And into the early 19th century, it was still being practiced. Nowadays, we see astrology coming into the field of psychology, but we've been seeing that for some time, since the middle of the last century. Depth psychology and archetypal psychology takes a look at the energy, the energetic influences that we have in our lives. In fact, Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of all time, a lot of people are going to know that name. He's quoted as saying that when he had a very difficult, he was an astrologer, and he carried on, he precipitated the archetype work that just carried forward. But Jung would turn to the stars to better understand the psychology. Sometimes just classic psychology didn't reveal the answers that he needed. And so the wise psychologists, in my opinion, the ones that are in the know, they know that they save lots of hours, lots of couch time with a client by getting to know their stars, knowing who they are. And then they're able to understand what the emotional triggers are, because isn't all the reasons why we go to get our head straight? We seek out professionals because emotionally we just are crazed, right?
Yeah.
And yet we can understand what those emotional triggers are when we look at the evolutionary aspects of our birth chart and what's happening in the sky today, what transits are triggering particular points. And I'll go as far as to say the changing sky is just as important as a birth chart. So I recommend that everyone who's listening to us find an evolutionary astrologer. Yes, I'd love to see you. If it isn't me, find an evolutionary astrologer and get to know your stars through your birth chart. And then just as you go for an annual checkup with your physical doctor, have an annual checkup with your astrologer. Understand what the weather of the coming year is. And astrologers will be able to tell you what's the weather of the next 10 years. 5 years from now, you're going to have this particular energy. You got to be prepared. Now's the time to get ready for this thing that you want to do. I can point clients to all of those particular phases of life, the weather and how to dress for it. Going back to energy, emotion, everything is energy. When you know who you are, you understand what triggers your emotions. You understand then how to really accept it. I'm not a victim. Why were you given the birth chart you were given? Or better yet, why did you choose it? And now let's work with what you got because you picked it. And let's understand why you need that for the evolution of your soul. Calm the brain chatter down, know yourself, connect spiritually, however you do that. And you don't need to go to church, as we know. And get healthy. Get healthy. But if you want to go to church, that's okay too. But get healthy like that.
And the beauty in whatever somebody decides as is their healing path,
right,
is that they're trying to change.
Yes.
The hard part in committing yourself to a path is that I don't know if you had this, but my mother, when she went on a diet, everyone in the family went on my mom's pineapple diet. And so if you're going to choose a religion, you choose it. And don't force your kids to join it because they don't know why you joined it and they weren't part of that. They don't know why you're doing this diet.
That is so true. Don't preach to other people that are not ready for the message. They're just not ready. You need to honor everybody where they are.
And understand that they're going to wake up or have that aha moment with their certain combination in their time.
Divine right timing. When the time is right, maybe it won't happen, but then it wasn't the right time.
As we bring this conversation with Jeanne and really this whole trilogy to a close, I feel a kind of resonance. You've heard us talk about moksha, energy, contracts, ego awakening, and the way life weaves patterns and eventually lead us home. And as I sit with that, I realize this is also the right moment to share something important about the future of this podcast and where our journey is headed. Together with Jeanne and others in this soul tribe, we've founded a nonprofit called Antara Pathways, Inc., located online at www.antarapathways.org. Antara means inner, the space within, the passageway into healing. Through Antara Pathways, our mission is to support those facing major life transitions, end-of-life care, trauma, crisis, and the kinds of ego disillusions that can feel terrifying, but ultimately lead to liberation. We are building a framework of guidance, compassion, and presence, helping people reframe their suffering and learn how to accept what is. At this time, I've chosen to step fully into a master's program. This decision comes from the same place, to prepare myself with the structure and the stability that will allow me to sustain this work for years to come. Between launching a nonprofit, pursuing a degree, and trying to plant seeds of real change, my attention is being pulled in many directions. That means, for now, philosophical entertainment as you've known it, it will be paused, or pausing. Season 4 comes to a close here. But this is not the end. When we return for Season 5, you'll notice a shift. Our episodes will reflect the work of Antara Pathways. They'll focus on end-of-life transitions, on healing in the midst of trauma, on reframing the ego's illusions, and on learning to meet death and life with grace. I can't give you a timeline for when that new season will begin. The truth is, our resources are minimal, and I'm carrying a lot of this work myself. But it will return, and when it does, it will return with deeper stories, more lived experience, and the voice of Antara flowing through it. If you've been listening and you feel called, if something in this conversation stirs you, consider this an invitation. We need help. We need supporters, collaborators, volunteers, people who want to see this mission grow. If you'd like to be part of what we're building here, reach out. Your presence could make the difference in bringing Antara's vision to life. So for now, I want to thank you for listening, for supporting, for walking with me through these explorations of philosophy, energy, and consciousness. Every download, every share, every moment you've spent here, it matters. This is not goodbye. It is a pause, a breath, a turning of the page. Season 4 of Philosophical Entertainment ends here. Season 5 will begin with Antara Pathways. Until then, take care of yourself and love without delay.